I believe that you wrote the script in 6 days.
Yeah.
I would like to know how was the process of writing the book, and also if you always knew that you didn't want to change the original text in your film.
Yeah, I mean, when I read the book, Paolo brought me the book it came to Toronto, my city in Canada, and handed me the book. And 2 days later, after I read the book, I said, yes, I would like to make this into a movie, but let me see what kind of movie it would be. And I just transcribed all the dialogue. It was the dialogue in the book which made me certain that it could be a movie. It was very dramatic, very interesting. Don DeLillo writes very specific, wonderful dialogue in all his novels, but even here it was even more concentrated. So I just transcribed all the dialogue. That's two completely different things. And there are certain things in a novel, any novel, but in this particular novel, that I knew would not work as cinema. And it's just experience. I knew to leave them out, not to try to make them work somehow. I mean, we've all seen movies that are based on a novel where you hear voiceover, somebody reading you the book, like you're a child at bedtime, reading the book to you while you watch the movie. And to me, that means that you have failed to make cinema. So that's.
This question is from Robert. When you first read the script, what was your first?
I think my first impression was just how different it was to anything I'd ever read. I was incredibly. It seemed like one of those scripts she had paid.
Very mysterious. You really have, as a director, you only have your intuition. You do your homework. You look at the movies that an actor has done, and you even look on YouTube to see interviews. He looked up Rotten Tomatoes, and I looked up interviews he had been doing, and it gives you a feeling for what what he is as a person, or how he handles himself. Does he have a sense of humor? For me, that's very important. No matter how dark the movie is, we laugh a lot, and it really, to me, is part of the creative process to keep things light. So ultimately, I approached Rob. We all thought it was a good idea, and as he says, he was a little worried. I had to kind of convince him, but not to convince him that it would be an interesting movie, but to convince him that he's the right one to do the role. And you find that with actors.
A rhythm established itself quite quickly, and there wasn't a single scene which really stood out. It just sort of everything.
Yes, this is the character. This is Eric Hacker. This is great, and you just go from there. When it works, it's wonderful. When it doesn't work, it's horrible.
I mean, that was the first thing that attracted me to the film in the first place. There was for some reason I always like scripts a lot which have some kind of freshness and just the way they write dialogue. And it's so rare as well, because people who write screenplays, generally the screenplay writing is not the most important part of movie making. And so when you come across a script which is really well written and it's really well constructed, it's such a shock. And I was reading, and also I find it so much easier because you don't even. I remember reading it the first time, and you don't really even have to know what it's about. You don't have to approach it the same way as you'd approach a normal part. It just rolls really well because it's well constructed. It's constructed like poetry. It almost seemed like Don DeLillo had been reciting it as he was writing, because it's so easy to say. So yeah, a voice came really quick. I was just really lucky. I just did it the exact same way, like in the movie, that I did the first time I ever read the script.
Yeah.
Eric Tucker asks himself, do people speak like this? Do you think people speak really like this?
I mean, I think anyone, if if they really turn the mirror towards themselves and watch themselves speaking, you will suddenly think, like, am I behaving like a human being? I have absolutely no idea if I'm behaving like a human being. I think it's anybody, but I think he's deeply, deeply self-obsessed. So like it kind of, every aspect of life seems totally abstract and almost insane to him, I think. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, at the same time, it doesn't really make any difference to him. Language is almost meaningless. But yeah, I think that answers the question. I don't know about a turning point, but it was definitely a kind of curveball. I wasn't really expecting. I've been asked for 4 or 5 years when I've been doing these Twilight movies, and all the movies in between. Every time I promote them, everyone's like, "Are you afraid of being typecast?" And to get this, which to me seemed very, very different, the year that I'm ending Twilight, it seemed like, it was like a kind of a gift. Yeah, it's made me think about things differently. I mean, it's basically, I remember asking Dave when I got the part, like, why, what have you seen, which make you cast me in this thing? But it did make me think afterwards, like, if you get it, if you like something, if I like something, then just do it, because there's no point in doubting yourself. Because the worst thing that can happen is you make a bad movie. It's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah.
This one is for the club. You're very young, and you discovered artists or what kind of characters are you looking for students?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to. I try and get parts which. I have no idea. I mean, yeah, I just good ones.
Hello, I'm Sarah from Empire Magazine Portugal. I have 2 questions. First of all, to Mr. Cronenberg, what was your biggest challenge during this process? And can I ask the other one, or should I?
Maybe wait. The biggest challenge is financing. It's very boring to say, but for a difficult independent film, the financing is the problem, really. To get the money together, you need a very inventive, wonderful producer, and it's constantly in your mind until you start shooting, and then even then you worry that suddenly the movie will fall apart. So, but creatively, it was a very beautiful, smooth shoot. I mean, the things that you have to do are. It's fun. It's not really a challenge in the sense that you mean. It's not like you have bad weather and you have to fight the weather. Inventing the limousine and the set, which was about 25 pieces that would come apart so that we could shoot, and then trying to portray New York City when we were shooting in a set in Toronto. You use computer graphics and green screen to sort of put New York City outside the limo. But those are not. They're challenges technically, but it's just fun. I mean, that's part of the enjoyment of making the movie is creating this illusion, because it is, of course, it's creating an illusion. So I wouldn't call that challenging, really. We had wonderful actors. Once we had the cast, it was fantastic. It was really a very smooth shoot. We actually finished early because it was everything just went really well. I know that's kind of boring, but that's the truth.